I'm suing Hooters for sex-based discrimination.
I'm telling you, if they had called it Cooters instead of Hooters, we wouldn't be going through any of this right now, because anybody can have Hooters, but I think we all can see where I'm going with this. What's up, everybody? Thairivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, so this is Brandy. Brandy is a trans woman, just barely, but nonetheless, a trans woman. Brandy is currently suing Hooters because they wouldn't hire her, which we're gonna hear her full story in a second, but unless Brandy was applying to be a dishwasher, I am 100% with Hooters on this one. Because to me, going to Hooters and having Brandy as your server is worse than taking your kid to a drag show. Hear me out. All I'm saying is, could you imagine if you went out to Hooters for a nice family dinner, maybe after church on a Sunday? You and your family sit down, and here comes old Moose Knuckle Mary as your server, and now you gotta explain to your kids why your server looks like she's smuggling tater tots in her short shorts. No sir, no ma'am, no turkey, no ham. Where at least if you go to a drag show, you can just explain to your kids that is a drag queen. A ridiculous caricature of what's supposed to be a woman. Drag queens are the clowns of the gay community. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should take your kids to drag shows. Drag shows are no place for a kid, and I've always said that. And not because I care about what you do with your kids. You do whatever you want with your kids. I go to drag shows to watch scantily clad drag queens tell dirty jokes and harass straight men in the audience. I don't need your 9-year-old sitting next to me creeping me out while I do it. But back to Brandy and my analogy. At least with a drag queen, you can easily dismiss that. But if Brandy is your Hooters girl, you and your family all gotta pretend that she's a woman and that this is perfectly normal. Oh, and if you haven't already heard this story, right at the end of this broadcast, they slip in what I think is the actual reason that this Hooters didn't want to hire Brandy. Anyway, let's get to the story. Before we go any further, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 100,000 followers, so if you're new here or if you just haven't subscribed yet, please take care of that now.
The Hooters on Wolf Road drawing protesters twice in recent weeks.
Justice for Brandy! Justice for all!
Okay, I'm gonna have to stop this already because justice for Brandy, justice for all. Are we really pretending that she's suffered some great injustice? She just didn't get hired at Hooters. It's not like she's a political prisoner. Slow down, Mandela.
I'm suing Hooters for sex-based discrimination on the basis of accommodations and on the basis of employment.
All right, stopping again. First off, that is definitely an I want to speak to the manager haircut. So what we are dealing with here is a Taryn. That's right, a trans Karen. And you say you're suing for discrimination on the basis of accommodations and on the basis of employment. I mean, I get what you're saying when you say the employment part, but when you say the accommodations, do you mean them not accommodating your big back?
The restaurant has been a regular stop for Brandy Livingston.
Apparently it was like her Cheers.
So much so, she hoped to someday work there. However, after her recent transition,
I'm gonna guess very recent transition. And I'm sorry, but when you transition, you don't just go straight to Hooters Girl. There are levels to this, boo-boo. It's even hard for some real women to get hired at Hooters. And here Brandy is on her second day of daytime cross-dressing and wants to skip levels to be at a Hooters Girl. And all jokes aside, Brandy does not look like a Hooters Girl. Maybe warm up by starting off at the Waffle House. Not to be mean, I love the Waffle House. I've met some really great servers at the Waffle House. But if we're being completely honest, I have seen a few Waffle House waitresses with a similar build to you, Brandy. So it might be a good place for you to start off. I mean, Waffle House might try to turn you into the bouncer or security, but at least you're working. And by the way, where is your makeup? Hooters girls wear makeup. It's even considered part of the uniform. And you had to dress for the job you want. If you really wanted to be a Hooters girl, you should have thrown your balls in some booty shorts, put on a white wife beater, and dressed as a Hooters girl for this news story. And then you could have at least been like, tell me I'm not a Hooters girl. And they would have been like, you're not a Hooters girl. Oh yeah, and I'm not trying to body shame or anything, but those little fat man titties are not gonna cut it. It's called Hooters.
Brandy claims that she's not respected there as a woman.
Because you aren't, Blanche. You just aren't.
They would use male pronouns. They would refer to me as he.
In all fairness, that could have been an honest mistake, because not only do you not look like a Hooters girl, you don't even look like a woman. And like I always say, if you're not going to take this seriously, we're not going to take this seriously.
She claims it goes even further, telling me employees and management at the restaurant continually harass her when using the public restroom.
I overheard one of the servers after I left the restroom talking to one of the managers.
Probably because you blew it up. I'm sure those poops don't identify as female.
And said that, why are you allowing him in the women's restroom? And the manager said, oh, I don't like it any more than you do.
Serious moment here. This is something that trans people that make no effort to pass are just going to have to learn to deal with. If you look nothing like a woman and you are making no efforts to look like a woman, but you're still taking advantage of the fact that the laws of your state won't allow the management to make you go to the men's restroom, that's something you're just going to have to live with. The law may say that they have to accept it, but that doesn't mean they have to like it.
Brandy filed a claim with the New York State Division of Human Rights, and after investigating, they found sufficient evidence her rights may have been violated under New York Executive Law 296, and there will be a hearing.
See, and if you look at that, the law does cover gender identity, and I'm sure that's where Brandy's going to try to get over. But just having looked at what it takes to be a Hooters girl, I can tell you that they could flag her for several reasons outside of gender identity. Hooters even says they want their servers to be fit. And I cannot stress this enough. Even if you were a real woman looking the way you look, I can guarantee you that you would not get the job.
At-will situation, proving that the employer's reason they gave was wrong is not enough. You got to prove that it was discrimination on the basis of some prohibited characteristics, such as
your big back.
Gender identity.
She says she applied 3 times for employment.
I guess she thought the third time was the charm, but that alone would make some people not want to hire you. Like if you apply at the same place 3 times, it might make people begin to feel like you're stalking them.
I'm not going to be ignored, Dan.
I said, do you want to see my experience or anything? Because I had previous jobs I've had written down. And he said, well, we don't care about experience. We hire on the basis of personality, and there's an image that needs to be met.
Of course they didn't want to see your previous jobs. They can see your big back, girl. And they even mentioned your personality, which is another thing. Hooters girls are bubbly. You are not that. You really should have just taken the L and made it your goal to get into Hooters girl shape and to learn to project that kind of confidence. Again, on a serious note, you could have used this rejection to better yourself and maybe in the future tried at a different location. And sure, you may have failed, but you're failing now. Besides, what's the rush? You're gonna be a woman for the rest of your life, if you keep up with it.
Hooters has fired back, saying through their lawyers that Brandy was requested to not return to the restaurant.
And now we get to the meat and potatoes of it. No pun intended. Brandy has been 86 from the Hooters.
Because of what they say were her own offensive actions, and allege that Brandy, on several occasions, made sexually explicit comments to servers.
You are being a creep at the Hooters. This is not sounding very ladylike.
They just claimed that you had, prior to transitioning and after, you had frequently made multiple servers at the restaurant uncomfortable by informing them you wanted to marry them, discussing masturbation.
I never said any of that.
Discussing masturbation? Again, not very ladylike. And the way she said, I never said that, makes it sound like she totally did say that. And like I told you guys, there was a reason other than her gender identity that she wasn't getting hired. But wait, there's more.
The Hooters company says that you had threatened to go to a gun range for practice for the next time you came to the restaurant.
My mom would take me to the gun range and for clay pigeon shooting trap. I feel like one of the servers might have overheard what me and my dad were talking about and misunderstood what we were talking about.
Yup, lightweight threatening to go postal at the Hooters. You should be ashamed of yourself, young lady. Threatening to pack a piece in your bosoms and come back and show them what's what. I am really disappointed in you, Brandy.
I have reached out to local law enforcement to check any claims of possible violence and have found no such threat. Ultimately, Brandy says she does not want money.
What I really want is an apology. I'm never gonna get that.
Okay, I don't think you understand what a lawsuit is for. You don't sue someone to get an apology. And an apology for what? For not hiring you? For not putting up with the fact that you were being a creep? For not putting up with the fact that you were lightweight threatening them? For not liking that you were using the women's bathroom? The more I hear the story, the more I think you might owe them an apology.
Lawyers for Hooters have not responded to repeated requests for comment. Brandy and Hooters head to a human rights hearing in September of 2025.
September of 2025. Hooters doesn't care about this, and neither do the courts. They just all have to humor it. Besides, if you don't know the history of Hooters, Hooters has been sued so many times that this little lawsuit is the least of their worries. Because in my opinion, this isn't even about discrimination at all. We've all been turned down for jobs in the past. Most of us just move on. Yeah, maybe we'll tell our friends that this particular company or this particular business was stupid for not hiring us, but most of us do just move on. This is really unhealthy thinking.
It's a very slow system. I think that's why more people don't stand up for their rights.
And that was Brandy's mom closing it out, which, to be honest, I blame you, ma'am, because you're the one that should have told your solder that these things just happen sometimes and you need to just move on like any other healthy-minded woman would. But you probably never told them no when they were growing up, and that's why they're acting like this now. And this really gets on my nerves because situations like this are why so many people with legit claims of discrimination just get ignored. And you should also tell your kid that if they think that this is discrimination, they're really not ready to be a woman, trans or otherwise. And if I sound a little testy on this one, it's just because I'm tired of so many people crying discrimination when there really is no discrimination. And the trans community specifically does not have the market cornered on that, even though they do use that card a lot. And it usually is a person like this that's just trying to force their way into something that isn't necessarily made for you or where you're not going to be welcomed. And I know I said it before, but you got to go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And trying to force people to accept you when your behavior from their side seems to be unacceptable anyway, it just seems like if this person had any friends or family that cared about them, because their mother doesn't appear to care about them, in my opinion, if their mother really did care about them, she would be honest enough to just say, hey, let's just move on. Let's forget about this. You're not behaving like an adult right now. But instead, they'll encourage this behavior, and people have been protesting. They said twice in the last week that people have been protesting. Protesting for what? Because you didn't get a job? We've all not gotten jobs. A lot of us have not gotten jobs that we were completely qualified for, and we move on. So is this going to be the way that you're going to run for the rest of your life? That anytime anybody doesn't hire you for your job, you're going to sue them because you're going to claim it's some sort of discrimination? And do you not realize the way that that hurts people that have actual claims of discrimination? Like, laws are being put on the books to protect certain groups of people, and certain people from within those groups are taking advantage of those laws and abusing those laws and making it so that in the future it's going to be harder to get these laws passed because people are going to be like, yeah, we already tried something like that and it just led to a bunch of unnecessary lawsuits. It basically clogged up the court systems because some people aren't grown up enough to understand that sometimes it's not about you being trans, sometimes it's not about you being male, female, a person of color, any of the things you want to attribute it to. Sometimes you're just not right for the job. And sometimes it is about that completely, but you move on anyway because time-wise it's not going to be worth it. If you wanted to be a server at Hooters, you could be a server somewhere else. Why does it specifically have to be Hooters? And if you ask me, it's probably not about Hooters at all. It was just about setting up a place that you knew would reject you, and then you could pretend to be a victim. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Also, if you guys didn't hear, it has been confirmed that Olympic gold medalist in women's boxing Imani Khalif is in fact male. If you want to hear me talk about why a little compassion might be in order, check out this video here. And before you get mad at me, remember I said a little compassion may be in order. So I'm only saying a little, and I did say may, so that means it may not be either. Either way, I appreciate you watching. As always, this has been thairivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.